I started drinking when I was in the 8th grade. And I got into the wrong crowd, as they say. I smoked a bunch of dope, people fighting in the streets and craziness, gangs in Brooklyn. I stole money from my mother. Ended up in jail in New Orleans. Y'all from Greenwich Village, boy? Started hallucinating. Amphetamines, LSD. My mind started going cuckoo. I just lost it completely. About the time that I was, I guess, around 7 years old, my father started getting very ill. He'd be home for a while, he'd be in a hospital for a while. This went on for about 2 years. Then all of a sudden he was gone. I was devastated by his death. I think of it as being like a stabbing wound right in my heart. I had a huge personality change after my father died. I became like the neighborhood bully. I can remember when the change actually happened, where somebody was pushing my brother, and normally I would have just let it happen or whatever, but I just went into a rage, and I just really beat this kid up crazy. Like, I wanted to be a tough guy, and to me, Jewish kids were more like accountants than tough guys, and I wanted to run, I guess, as far away from my Jewish identity as I possibly could. By the time I was going into high school, I started getting into gangs in Brooklyn, and I was drinking and using drugs, and very angry, and I had a nervous breakdown. I was using amphetamines very heavily. I started hallucinating, and I ended up locking myself in a room. I stayed in that room for almost 2 years. I saw my father, and he was all glowing and dressed in white. I can remember him saying to me, "Come with me, and I'm going to take you to see my God." I just felt filthy. I said, "I can't go to see God. I can't go with you." I just could literally feel myself pushing the vision away, pushing God away, saying, "Go away, I am not ready, I can't go with you." And the instant that I did that, everything changed. I was freezing cold. I was catapulting downward, like going down into this abyss. I had a feeling that I was surrounded by demons, by godless things. I was falling endlessly, and I was being swept into a place that I didn't even know existed, which felt to me like hell. The people who I had originally did drugs with and tripped with, they had 2 little girls. And I used to sleep on their couch, and the little girls used to come and wake me up in the morning. And they had me read to them from Narnia. I thought that C.S. Lewis was a hippie like me living in Berkeley. I thought this guy is just too far out. And I fell in love with Aslan, and I fell in love with Narnia. A couple of weeks after that, or right around this period of time, I think it was probably late March, cold, nasty, kind of semi-rainy night, I was accosted, basically, by a lady on the street. She had a hood on and a cloak. And she was just looking at me, and she kept saying, "Did you know that Jesus loves you?" I'm in my wonderful peacock hippie colors and rainbow stuff, and I got my tie-dye stuff on, my bands and all this kind of stuff, and she's in gray and a cloak and stuff. I said, "What do I want to have to do anything with her religion and her Jesus?" But when she looked at me and said, "Jesus loves you," something struck me. This is what I'm looking for. It was real. I felt and experienced in her eyes the love of Jesus. And she handed me this little paper with some writing on it, trifold paper. They call it a tract, you know what it was. And in that tract, there was quotes from C.S. Lewis, who I didn't even know was a Christian. And then I got a call from those 2 people who I originally did my first LSD experience with. And they were a husband and wife. They were the parents of those 2 little girls I read Narnia with. And they said, "Steve, we found him. He can accept you. He loves you. He died for you. They basically told me the gospel on the phone. I knew what they were telling me was the truth. I just sensed it. This was where my whole trip, my whole search was leading. So I hung up the phone and I wanted to pray. I'd never prayed before in my life, but I really wanted to pray. I wanted to say basically the words that they told me to say. Lord, I believe you are who these people are telling me you are. I believe you are my Lord, and I ask you, Lord, to come into my life, to forgive my sins, take over my life, and bring me into your kingdom. Amen. I'd always felt like I carried around a burden. I was always drawn to the blues, to sad things, to dark poetry. I felt lighter and freer after I asked Jesus to come into my life. The drugs that I did was really as a way for me to escape that burden of depression which I carried. I physically felt different. I consider myself today to be a Jew who has found his Messiah. He was sent for us, and my search ended for my Father when I found him.